Hey, welcome folks to the Hire My VA Team
Ah,
and Business Building Podcast, where we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking your bank. And I'm Dave Braun. I'm here with my partner, co-host, my friend, former Green Beret. Well, actually, you still are a Green Beret, bro. Larry Broughton.
I feel like I should have a cowbell.
That's
Yes.
it.
Hey,
That's it.
Dave. How
Hey,
are
you doing
you?
well?
I'm doing great. We're recording this over Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes.
And it actually is my favorite time of the year. I try to do this. I try to be very intentional throughout the year about being grateful and telling people
Yeah.
I'm thankful for them. But really, I am so grateful for you. So
Yeah.
grateful for you. I'm glad
Thank
we're
you.
friends, and our friendship has endured for a while now, and I'm thankful for
Yeah.
you. Thanks for all your hard
Um,
work on this program too.
yeah.
I think we're impacting people. So yes, it's been a
Yeah.
great weekend. Spent time with my kids. Had a great day with my dog and son today. So it's good. How you doing?
Oh, grateful for you too. Yeah, it's been a fun weekend. Lots of eating. I had something happen that never happened to me before in my life.
What? You can't just drop that one. What?
Well, I've got to take my glasses off for that. So
Oh, gotta whip them off like this.
here we go. Yeah. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I make since it's Thanksgiving weekend, everybody has their favorite things they cook, and I've done homemade rolls from scratch for like 25
I
years.
have had them and they are
Yeah, that's
delicioso.
right.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
first time ever, the yeast did not rise.
Shocking.
There's a whole lesson. We need to do a podcast on what do you do if your yeast
On
doesn't
leavened
rise.
rolls.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to talk about that. Whole nother
All right.
podcast.
All right.
But all right, so today, without further ado, today we're going to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
We had an interview. I did an interview with Sara Lang a while ago. She's a web agency owner
Yeah.
and located in Ontario, Canada. And she's been a friend. We've helped her get a great VA a little bit ago, who's still
Yeah.
with her today. We did
Yep.
a great interview with her, and I learned several things from her. And I've got a list here, but one of the things that she did to prepare herself, and she'll talk about this, is that she ended up just starting to do her processes, recording her processes.
That's right.
And we talk about that's a huge side benefit of deciding to actually employ somebody
Yeah.
to work on your team, is that it kind of forces you to grow up and be a real business owner, right?
Yeah.
And get your processes down.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, we've done this with other people. It's one of the things we've been recommending to our coaching clients for years. It's one of the easiest ways to start systematizing things in your business, systematizing processes. I need to be specific, not things. And one of the things we like to remind everyone of, Dave, is that we're not doing this program just so that you can hire a VA. We're trying to help you become a better entrepreneur.
Oh, exactly.
And it's going to clothed in hiring a VA. And this is one of those things. I mean, crying out loud, you've jumped on planes and flown across the country to help people record processes in some of our
That's
coaching
right.
clients' businesses. So this is so important. And I'm glad that we're doing these interviews from folks who are going through the program. And so the community is one of the great ways to raise your hand if you'd like and say, hey, I'm having this great successes, and here's what I'm learning from the Hire My VA program, whether it's the Prepare module, the Hire module, or the Thrive module. And who knows, we may be calling you to interview you for one of these
That's
podcasts.
right.
But I do love the tips and insight that we're learning from some of the folks who've been through the program. So I really appreciate that you interviewed Sara for this.
Yeah.
It should be a really good learning opportunity for folks that are listening to this or
Yeah,
watching this, depending on what they do.
she's got some great tips and some good advice
Yeah.
at the very end. We're not going to spoil it for you, so you guys listen,
Right.
and Larry and I will be back at the end.
That's
So
right.
without further ado, I said that once before.
Ado.
Here we go. Here is our interview with Sara. All right, welcome everybody. I'm Dave Braun of Hire My VA. Welcome to another great discussion we're going to have with someone who's on the journey to gain true freedom with virtual assistants. We've got Sara Lang on today, and her story is just amazing. What she's going to be doing in about a little over a week. And Sara is with Prestige Digital, and she's a web design. She owns it. She has an agency there in Hamilton, Ontario, which is in Canada, in case you guys don't know. And she does graphics, and she's just a great, great business owner and a great friend. And I've known her for a long time. So
Thank
Sara,
you.
tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I am living north side across the border, Canadian. My business has been around. We just celebrated 6 years, and I previous life was a social worker, and I did that for about 8 years.
Okay.
And then found it was just really difficult to earn a living and find that good kind of work-life balance. I was working like 3, 4 different jobs, and I really wanted to try to find some freedom. And I'd been kind of working with WordPress, blogging back when it was really cool to blog. So I thought, hey, maybe I can make a go of this. So I quit my job. I had a great job with our city, pension benefits, all that. So everyone thought I was absolutely crazy when I left. But within the first year, I'd kind of proven I could do it, but not necessarily very well. I built I think it was almost 50 websites in my first year for a bunch of
Wow, that's
poor yoga,
fantastic.
poor yoga teachers that paid me barely $500 a shot. So I realized if I wanted to make this an actual viable career, I really needed to kind of change the way the business was structured and who I was targeting and recurring revenue and those types of things. So from kind of years 2 to 4 was really experimenting. That's how you and I met. We did some coaching together, and it really kind of pivoted the way the business ran. And then I had my first baby in 2017. So that was my first time taking any time away from the business. But I didn't have a VA at that time, and it was really, really stressful. I did hire someone, but it was just kind of as a stopgap solution. And now I'm expecting my second baby next month. And so things have really, in the last year, I've had my one VA we just celebrated a year on March 6th. So it's been an interesting journey to get here, but the business is about as strong as it's ever been at this point.
Oh, fantastic. And that's the business being as strong as it's ever been. And that's not without a lot of effort, right, on your end.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of learning. Yeah, for sure. So you've had, it's Kenneth, you've had him for now. You said you just celebrated your year anniversary.
Yes.
Right? With him, right? And
Yep.
he's your first, is he your first virtual assistant?
He's my first that lasted more than the first 2-week grace period.
Okay. All right, good. Oh, well, we want to talk about that. That. So, so what was your working life like before you really had Kenneth? So think back to a little over a year ago when we started working together on this particular project. And we've known each other for what, about 3 years now, something like that?
I think it's closer to 4.
4? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, time flies, especially when you get old like me.
So when I came back from my first maternity leave, I joined a networking group, which worked out really well. And I got absolutely hammered with work and that started in September of 2018. And by March of 2019, about 5 or 6 months later, it was just pandemonium. I was working probably 80-hour weeks. Husband was cranky, baby was cranky, everyone was mad at how much I was working. I was,
and you were cranky.
Oh yeah, I was cranky. It was beyond what I can do. And I, without sounding really arrogant, I know I can churn out work pretty fast and pretty good. And it was still, I think at the most we had 16 projects. I had about 16 projects. Ooh. All trying to juggle. And I missed my very first deliverable ever in all the years. I missed it. And that was kind of my wake-up call to say, hey, you're not managing well, and now it's impacting work. Forget your own mental health. It's impacting the clients. So that was kind of the turning point for me, where I was like, okay, something has to give. I either need to reduce the clients and charge more, or get help and keep, this momentum going. But it was time to evaluate what that next move would be.
And then your decision for what that next move would be was?
To hire you.
Yeah, well, we worked together on getting you somebody, getting you Kenneth. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was to come to you and say, hey, you're the VA expert. You're the person I know that has done this and has had wonderful success. And it feels, especially in that place of like already feeling really stressed and anxiety and kind of pushed to the limits, the idea of trying to hire somebody just felt really, really overwhelming. So I wanted someone that I trusted that could help me navigate that process, because hiring is difficult, let alone hiring overseas and hiring, someone that's virtual and figuring out how to trust them, how to onboard them, how to pay them, like from the little logistical things to learning about some of the things that are important about like cultural differences and expectations, to, how do I let them into my world in baby steps? Like it was everything from the little to the big to, and again, a lot of us in this field, we're good at executing work, but the business side of things can be a big challenge. That's not necessarily where our skills lie.
Right.
Especially in this human resources area more.
Yeah. So you talked about several things there about, trust, and we'll get into that in a sec, the trust issue, because that's a big one for all of us.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing, right?
Yep.
And so we'll get into that in a sec. But, so think back to a year when we started working together on this and you hired Kenneth. What did you do to prepare yourself and the business for jumping into this?
Processes, outlining processes,
Mm-hmm.
and defining what I like, writing everything I do down, because one of the things that was really important to me was consistency. So, whether it was him developing and designing a site or me, I didn't want the clients to know the difference. So he needed to be able to follow exactly what I did and how I did it. So that was sort of a big piece. And then also evaluating the tools I used, what I wanted to share with him, what I didn't want to share with him, and how to bring them into my world without exposing it all, if you will.
Yeah. So that is the trust issue. Well, let's just talk about it now. So, you said you set up processes and things like that, writing everything down. I mean, what was your go-to way to do that?
So I was working in Trello. That was the platform I used for my process. I created a template board and I'd clone it for each new client.
And that's a really good way for everybody to start, right? Using Trello.
And it worked beautifully for me. Like, I'd been using Trello for years, and we started down that path, but we found within the first sort of 3 months, by March, April, May, like I'd say within 3 months, we had already switched platforms. We had switched to, we were debating between Teamwork and Basecamp, and we ended up jumping forward with Teamwork. And we haven't looked back. It's been great, because we needed a project management tool that was more team driven versus more solo driven, better communication, better ways to manage files and assets and all of that. And we moved our communication from Slack over to Teamwork as well, using Teamwork Chat. So we were able to drop an app as well, which was great. So, so I needed to kind of reevaluate everything that was in Trello. And I still use it for myself as a business owner. I manage my project funnel through it and all my maintenance guys, but for actual project dev and communication, Teamwork has been wonderful.
Yeah, and that's we had a discussion on that. That's similar to the way we do it. We put everything in Basecamp, our chats and all that stuff, our to-dos, it's all there. However, my my CRM that I use for tracking clients and following up with them and stuff and putting them through a pipeline, I still use Trello.
Yeah, and us too. So I manage my leads, my prospects, here's what's on deck, here's what's active, here's every site we've ever built, and every year we keep a list going.
Yeah.
And then all the follow-ups, the maintenance, who's renewing when. I couldn't abandon Trello completely, but it just, as a team now of 2, it didn't serve us for project development.
Yeah. And I think probably what you're finding too is is that as your business changes and grows, as you try to get more efficient, as maybe you get more clients or whatever, your processes are changing.
For sure. And I look back, I still kept our template board in Trello, and I look back
Uh-huh.
to what it was before Kenneth arrived, and I look at how much we've improved and refined and added, and services that I just never had time to do because it wasn't an area of strength for me. And Kenneth brings those skills to the table. So now we're able to offer more bang for their buck. We don't charge anything extra, but his skill set is now included in what they get. So yeah, our process has been refined and refined and refined over the year.
And the way you brought that up, I'm glad you said that, because part of the way we structure things at HireMyVA is it's a 3-step process. It's prepare yourself.
Yep.
And it's hire, and then it's thrive. And the preparation part is important because you have to decide really who and what you need. And you said that you didn't necessarily want another Sara. You wanted somebody who had different strengths and different capabilities to augment you, correct?
For sure, because my biggest area of strength is design, and beautiful design, really, like, I don't want to say feminine per se, but like who I was targeting and who was coming to me, who I was attracting were, professional women. But there was a lot of technical stuff that I was slow at, that took me a while, or that I was just like, I don't have time to learn how to do this right now because I'm so busy. So sure, I was churning out beautiful websites that were, like, by all means very sound and functioning well,
Yeah.
but all the extra things Kenneth can bring for optimizing and that kind of thing, I just wasn't able to do at that time. So he really kind of added a lot to the team.
Yeah. And I like the way you put that, because it's not about bringing somebody into your business to fix it. It's bringing somebody in to help you go to another level, to give you some extra capabilities to serve your clients better, and or to help save you from those 15 projects all being on your shoulders.
For
Right?
sure.
Yeah.
And
So
I
it's
think
go ahead.
one of the things I found helpful was you had encouraged me before, like early in the process, to define my core values and figure out who I was as a business and what was important as a business owner, and important to our clients, and those types of things that I'd never really invested any mental energy into figuring out really what those were. Like I knew it because I was doing it, but being able to put it down on paper and then use that in times where I was having some challenges maybe with Kenneth, it was like I was able to come back and address those and say, hey, one of our core values is dependability. So when we don't deliver on time, or we miss a deadline, or the quality's not there, they can't depend on us the way that they need to, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I found that was really helpful in the hiring process, because it helped me figure out really what I was looking for. And skills can be learned, skills can be taught, processes can be taught, but
Right.
who the VA is really does matter, and what they value, and that there's kind of that whole other element to it as well, about hiring the right person.
Yeah. And I remember back to when we were working together on this, and it was Kenneth and another person. We were debating upon which person, and they were both great. And tell us a little bit about that story.
So, it was the two candidates were pretty close in terms of qualifications. The other gentleman was a little bit more lacking in design, whereas Kenneth had stronger experience with design and comfort with design. And at the time I was like, well, I don't want another designer. I'm the designer.
Yeah.
So I ended up, that was sort of like the logic behind the decision to go with the other guy. But I had felt like when I was interviewing them, everything was kind of pointing to Kenneth. But with regard to personality, language skills, just, he was a little bit more extroverted, a little bit more confident. And I felt like it would be an easier transition, like less cultural differences that I noticed with the other gentleman. Like it was just comfort thing for me, but he'd call me ma'am. And I'm like, well, I'm only in my 30s. I'm not a ma'am yet. But it was what was comfortable to him. So
Yeah.
they were just, again, like, I guess that whole gut instinct, right, played a
Yeah.
role. And I was like, my gut said Kenneth, but logic said the other guy,
Right.
based on what I was looking for at the time. And it turned out that because the type of work that we do is not, really intensive custom builds, it's pretty simple, 5-10 page WordPress websites. He had way too many development skills and not enough design. And I realized that I needed more design than I thought I did.
Yeah.
So early on in that process of working together and trying to onboard him, I realized, hey, I need something different than I actually thought. So I approached Kenneth and said, hey, can we do a little trial? I'd like to see how you do with a few tasks with regards to communication and design and some of the things the other gentleman was struggling with. So I had kind of both of them working at the same time. And it turned out really good. It turned out really good for me. I ended up firing or letting go the first guy and hiring Kenneth on. And it proved a couple things. One, follow your gut.
Yeah.
And two, that sometimes what we think we need isn't always what we need.
Yeah.
That being able
go
to
ahead.
be open to that and pivot, and especially early on in the hiring process, when if it's your first or second, you might not get it right the very first time.
Yeah. Well, and that's not something to be scared of. It's something to embrace
For
and
sure.
to say, look, because you had to get to where you are now. It's like that was really what you wanted.
Yeah.
And like you said, you pivoted. That's all. It's businesses like that. Our life is like that. We're constantly pivoting.
Yeah.
And in certain ways, it's kind of like, our business is raising kids. You think about how many times you've pivoted and how you dealt with Ben and all that stuff, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So you just have to, you know what you need. You do the best you can in prep, and then you jump in and do it. And then you've got people like you and me and others in the community that help you figure that out and help you adjust.
Definitely. And it was something that I know I was struggling with, and I had come to you and said, hey, how do I let him go? What's the right thing to do? Is it like, how do I do this? I've never fired anybody before.
Right.
So yeah, having the access to that type of information and it takes the stress off, because again, I don't know these things. I didn't know these things. I do now, but having access to someone that knows all this and has done all of this, and even the things like offer letters, what to offer, how to write it. Like, I can't say enough about all of forget finding the right person. Like that's a huge piece of it, but there's just this whole other component that HireMyVA simplifies and takes all the stress out. I mean, sure, you can Google like offer letter, but to have something that is sound and proven, it was super helpful.
Yeah, and it's great because it gives you a starting point and that way you can adjust it to your personality.
Yeah.
You can cut stuff out or add stuff in depending upon the situation, because every situation is different. If, like you said, if you have to let somebody go, there's various reasons why you may have to let them go, and you may handle that very, very differently depending upon what happens, right?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Well, man, that's a great journey that you've been on. So what do you think that you would do differently next time? Say you had to go back a year and you're hiring your first VA. What would you do different?
I think, well, I don't know if this counts, but do it a lot sooner.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. I would have been smart to do it like in the fall versus in the winter. It would have saved me a lot of stress. And I think in terms of the actual process, I think I would have, because I didn't really feel super confident at the time of hiring, but I really liked what what ended up working with kind of giving Kenneth a pilot, a trial,
Mhm.
I would consider doing that again. And one of the things that stressed me out was like paying them, like, okay, now I have to start sharing my money with somebody else. But that bit of investment, because I was so unsure and because they seemed so equal, what I would have done different is I would have hired them both on a trial basis for 2 weeks or a month or whatever would have made sense, given them the tasks that I felt like they were going to be weakest at. So I would have given the other guy design and given Kenneth more development, and given them also some same tasks to see who kind of came out on top. Like I would have done a little bit more evaluating versus just jumping right in with the one and then, experiencing the stress of it not working out and that type of thing. So not being afraid to dump a little bit of extra money and time into trying them out and letting them know that up front, like, hey, this is a trial. And I found that Kenneth earned a lot of respect from me in that process, knowing, because I told him, like, things aren't going great. I'd like to give you a trial. I'd like to try you out, but you're not hired yet. And the fact that he was okay with it and willing to try to prove himself spoke to his character to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. When you have a couple of candidates that you're not quite sure of, it's really good to try them both out, give them a trial project, and see especially how they communicate. Because it's interesting. I think I was talking with somebody about this. I think it must have been Melanie the last time, but the way we teach it now is to do some have them record a video of themselves doing something, right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting how them recording a video of them doing something and then talking about it, the level of their communication is very different than when you're just interviewing them.
Yeah.
And of course, that level of communication is different when you are doing chatting, like text messaging, right?
Yeah.
That's different. And then on Zoom calls and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an adjustment.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a I'm getting a little bit of echo there, but there's kind of I don't know, part of it's gut, but then part of it is, do you sometimes have to adjust as a leader in how you are communicating too?
Absolutely.
Because
yeah.
it's really it's not the responsibility of the person that you're talking to understand you. It's your responsibility to make sure that the person you're talking to understands you. Right?
Yeah. Yep. And I found that just knowing my personality and knowing how I learn, like I'm a really fast learner and I don't need a ton of explanation, was a very difficult thing for me to not have that same expectation of Kenneth.
Yeah.
And as great as he is, and as much as he's a very good fit for the business and he's still here rocking along a year later, we had some really challenging times at the beginning when it came to communication, because I was not explaining enough. I was not, detailing what I was expecting enough. And so he wasn't hitting certain things, whether it was the quality of a design or, again, he would put shading on everything and drop shadows.
Yeah.
Like, it's 2019, enough. But I wasn't clear enough about what I was expecting when it came to specific things. And I really had to learn how to clearly communicate with him in details that I wouldn't necessarily I need to provide him.
Mm-hmm.
So learning that spending an extra 10 minutes on my part, organizing his week or detailing a project and expectations, those few extra minutes on my part really made a huge difference to A, his quality of work, and B, his productivity, and C, I think his overall feeling of confidence, because we had a little bit of a rough patch early on where I felt like he thought he was failing and he started kind of not communicating as much and, missing some shifts. Like I felt like we were in a bit of a funk, if you will. And it really came down to communication and me not being clear enough with him about what I needed, what I wanted. And as soon as I pivoted and started doing things a little bit differently, it changed. And now I know that, you know, for Kenneth to be successful, I have to plan out his week about what is also, you know, achievable per shift. Just dumping a list of 20 things, it overwhelms him. And that's who he is, and that's his personality. So instead of giving him a list of 20 things for the week, I take 5 minutes every day and drop in 5. And that's, you know, so that was something that, you know, at first I was like, well, I don't want to have to do that. He should just know. And I went through a little bit of frustration with, you know, I'm paying you, get with it. But the same way you look at like a partnership, there's going to be things about your partner that maybe drive you a little bit crazy, but if they're the one, you adapt and you do it, and it just becomes part of how it is. So that was a big learning for me too, is to let go of some of the expectations and face what is real in front of me and work with that, because that made it very, very successful.
Yeah, that's a good realization on your part. It ends up being, it's not as much up to them to adjust to you, even though we think that's like, well, I'm paying you.
Yes.
That's just not in most people's capabilities. It's a rare capability, right? For somebody like that.
Yeah.
It's in our capabilities. That's why we're owning a business, right?
Yeah. And that's why we're hiring them. And,
yeah,
you know, other things like geography and language and access to stable internet. And there, you know, there's so many factors that go into, that type of understanding as a business owner.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's great. I kept teasing that we would talk about the trust issue. We're out of time. No, not really. Let's talk about the trust issue. Finally.
Well,
that's the big thing. So tell me what you're thinking on that.
I was pretty guarded at first. I didn't really give him a lot of access to much. It was individual WordPress accounts. I was loath to let him into cPanels even, or not loath, but nervous. So I hired him.
So now when we talk about cPanel, some people may be watching this that don't understand it. So it's basically giving a level to your server that they can do some, if they're bad, they can do a lot of screw up, like with email and all that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I was just giving him access to WordPress admin accounts at the very beginning. And you actually were very helpful, because I was just giving him my admin access, and you're like, no, don't do that. Make him a separate account.
Yeah, that's right.
Just the little things that I didn't think of. So
I remember when you told me that, I'm like, WTF, what?
Yeah. So yeah, I started off pretty guarded with all my information, all my clients. You know, it was nerve-wracking. And that was early March. And by middle of July, he had access to WHM.
Okay.
So that was huge. I decided I was going to take a holiday, and I gave him the keys to the kingdom. And I said, well, I'm either going to come back to things running wonderfully, or I'm going to come back and he will have destroyed my entire business. Joking, obviously. I really didn't think that'd be the outcome. But yeah, it was earned. And I gave him, you know, little bits of access here and there to different things. And yeah, once I realized he kind of had found his place within the company, and I felt like there was some respect on his end towards me and my business, and I knew he was seeing the value in, you know, steady paycheck and
right,
good hours and that kind of thing. It was like, okay, well, I feel like you're part of the team now. I feel like you believe you're part of the team now, and you're not gonna, you know, kind of be distrustful with this access.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's good. You jumped in pretty quick.
For sure. I remember thinking, I'm not going to give him WHM access until 6 months or a year. And
yeah,
it definitely was sooner. And had that vacation not come up, it might've been a little bit longer, but it was one of those, it's kind of like, well, now or never. And I took a bit of a leap of faith, but it turned out, and it actually took a lot of like extra work out of things for me, because now he can just go in and work, and, you know, I'm not having to create cPanels and give him access. Like it's nice now.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times we look at the worst case, and we need to look at the worst case when there's situations like this right now, and contemplate it. But then the other thing is, let's not forget about the best case.
Yep.
how much load they can take off of us and how much free time we have to shift our thinking. In fact, I wrote a blog post that should be coming up soon on what a VA can do to shift your thinking, to change your thinking to more, from more tactical to strategic. And it's just huge for us as business owners to be able to do that.
For sure. I feel like at this point in time, with having Kenneth a year later, I probably spend about half of my week working on the business and not in the business. Whereas before I had him, it was like 99.9% in and not on. It was just like, hold on, get the work done. You know, there was so many things that got missed in end of 2018 to mid 2019, you know, portfolio not updated. Like there was just a lot of stuff that fell by the wayside because client work comes first. And now I have so much more freedom. And prior to the whole COVID thing, because we've been very busy since that happened, but I was down to probably about 35 hours a week from 80.
Wow.
Yeah, so it really, really impacted my business, and my family life's better, my mental health is better, and the business is making just as much money as it did when it was just me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so it really, really, it was a game changer.
That's great. Well, you're my hero, Sarah. You are in so many ways.
Aw,
You know what you're doing with your business and how you brought on a project manager and
yeah.
you're going to be stepping away from it. So I think we should bring you on another time. You can talk about that once you get past having your next child.
Yep.
Is it boy or girl? I don't remember.
Surprise.
Oh, you don't know yet.
No, we don't know.
Oh, okay. Super. Well, after he or she you get in a routine, you can come back to work. Love to have you back on and talk about how things went when you were off.
For sure.
What you did before, what you're doing after, and
Yeah.
that's going to be really, really great because I want to aspire to that myself a lot more than I have now.
For sure. It's I don't know if same thing. If circumstances weren't as they are, I don't know if I would have hired a PM quite this early. But we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one quick piece of advice or a tip for someone who's considering hiring a VA. What's a big tip? Real quick.
Do it.
Do it. Okay.
It's going to be challenging, and it's going to feel like a little bit more work than you're already trying to manage right now, but it's going to be worth it. And Dave's course, knowledge, all the tools, all the resources, it's worth so much. I couldn't have done this without him. So don't hesitate, go forward, and in a year you'll be very grateful.
Right. And what's your biggest advice? One big tip for somebody who has a VA and really wants to thrive, take it to the next level?
Big tip to take it to the next level.
We talked a little bit about communication there, and
I'd say like figuring out what they love, what they want, what things, help them feel good and confident in their days. Cause that's, their attitude and their mental health and, what they bring every day to your business and to your work. That's almost more valuable than or more important than whether they churn out good work or not, the attitude they bring. So finding ways to work with who they are, their little idiosyncrasies, and giving them the things that make us feel good when we work for other people, whether it's an extra half a day off or not loading them up on Fridays so they can have like a nice weekend. Finding out those things that bring value to them and being like that good boss.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's really, really helpful. All right. So I think we're about done, but give yourself a shout out and tell the listeners where they can find a little bit about more about you or contact you.
So that would be prestigedigital.ca. We are in the process of finally updating our portfolio, so there'll be some new work up there. You can see what we've been up to for the last year and a half. And we're on Facebook as well. And there's links there on the website.
All right. Well, thank you again, Sarah, for your time. It was great. I've learned stuff. I hope everybody else who's listening to this or watching this will learn stuff. And everybody, that's a wrap. Remember to go to HireMyVA.com to check out all of the great material that we've got. Sign up for our course so that you can reclaim your freedom.
Mm.
Well, welcome back, folks. I hope you got a lot out of that thing like I did. Wow, Dave, that was power packed. I'm really glad that you did that interview. And Sarah, thanks so much for sharing or giving us all those insights. It was great, Dave. Good job.
Yeah, and it was so much fun to
Yeah.
talk to her, and she enjoyed it as well. There's a couple of really good points that she made, and that even listening to it again really stuck in my mind. One of the things she talked about was a steady paycheck is huge value for folks. And it's like, especially in the Philippines. And one of the things in our community recently, Brian Valentino shared how important that is to their family-oriented culture.
Well, and think about it. I mean, in today's environment, now you may be listening to this 2 years from now, from the time that we're recording it, but right now we're in late 2020, Thanksgiving weekend 2020, when we're going through this pandemic, right? That's not just hit here in the US, it is hit globally. So if there's a steady income, it's amazing what kind of loyalty, dedication, and sense of appreciation that people will have. And when people appreciate their employer, when they appreciate the job, when they appreciate the steadiness of an income, boy, it's amazing what it does for productivity, creativity, loyalty, because it takes the stress out of life.
Oh my
off
gosh,
of them.
yes.
You know what I mean? So that's a great point.
And that's why it's so important for us as business owners and entrepreneurs to work towards getting some steady income, some recurring income in our businesses, right?
No, that's absolutely right.
One of the important points she also talked about is, and this was surprising too, not surprising, and we know it, but it just reemphasized in my brain. She talked about she's a little bit worried. She was a little bit worried about the money, but she was so busy, she had to get some help. But she's now making just as much money as when it was just her.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing how that worked?
We know that's going to be, we know that's going to be the key, right? Because when you start working in your strengths, you start producing more.
Yeah.
Right. And you've got more freedom to do things that you're really good at and that you love, and you're doing great things for the world and for other people as well. But you're right. It's so good to hear it reinforced from someone else instead of us just saying it. You know, as a parent, you know, you say things to your kids over and over again, and then the neighbor or crazy Uncle Bob says the same thing, and they listen to crazy Uncle Bob, you know, instead of listening to us. Right. It's just a different perspective. So that's a great one too.
Yeah. And you know, another one is she talked about Kenneth bringing an additional skill set to her clients. So she's actually bringing more value to her clients by having a virtual assistant to help her out. And I thought that was great. But one of the tips that she had too is that at one point you just got to jump in and do it because it will change your life.
It absolutely will. Fear prevents us from doing that though. Sometimes, what if I can't, whatever, there's all kinds of mental blocks that we have. But when you jump in with both feet, some people say when you burn the boats, right. And you've got to do it. Then it's amazing what happens in your life. And crying out loud, we've got some of the clients that are going through the program now, and they're seeing exponential growth since they've been doing this thing. Right now, they've hired one person in particular I'm thinking of. They've hired 3 VAs since they started this thing a month ago.
Yeah, and it's going to change his business, put his business on a whole brand new level.
That's right.
Way up there.
Yeah, and he had the same thing. He was fearful about doing this.
Right? Yeah. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed that interview. I mean, we did, and as you could tell, we got so much out of it. So this is probably one of those interviews, just like I think any interview, you want to listen to it, multiple times because there's just so much in it that you want to get out of it.
What I'd like folks to do, Dave, is in the comment section, whether you're listening to this on iTunes or you're watching this on the YouTube channel, put some comments in there, but also come back to the forum, come back to the community forum and encourage your fellow tribe members in the forum to go listen to it and let us know what you learned there as well. Because, Dave, like you're saying, you're getting something out of the second, well, you did the interview, and you've heard this a couple of times before. You're getting stuff out of it this time that you didn't before. And so it's that old hashtag I like to use, TFTR, right? Thanks for the reminder.
Yes.
Every time you read a book, you're going to get something new out of it. And same thing with these darn interviews.
Yeah.
So thanks, Dave, for doing the interview. Please leave a comment, what you might have picked up from the interview.
Yeah, that was awesome. All right.
Yep.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us today. And remember, building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom. And we're here to help you. So there's 3 things that we'd love for you to do right now. And we'd really appreciate it if you did it. Number 1,
Right.
subscribe to this podcast if you haven't done so already. Number 2, give us a rating, preferably 5 stars. And then number 3, go to HireMyVA.com for more information on our course and community and our products, everything that we have to offer there. Because remember, even without experience, you'll learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I have helped a lot of folks. You can hear what's going on when you listen to these interviews and listen to the other podcasts that we've got. We'd love to just help you too. Join up, get in the community. To do that, just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
Hey, there's no other time, no better time right now, this time of the year, to be connected with somebody, share the joy, share the love, get connected with somebody. Life is not meant to do by yourself. The whole lone wolf thing is just an absolute myth, my friends.
Yes,
Get
absolutely.
tied in with somebody. Have a travel companion, as Dave and I like to say in our little group that we're in every week. But do yourself a favor, do the world a favor. Go do something significant today. All right, folks, go get them.
Bye. Take care.
See ya.